The first flakes began just after noon, a lazy, indifferent dusting that promised nothing more than a picturesque evening. Eleanor Vance watched them from the bay window of her living room, a porcelain mug of Earl Grey cooling in her hands. She did not find them picturesque. She found them ominous. It was the particular shade of the sky, a bruised leaden gray that seemed to press down on the roof of the sleepy upscale community of Pinecrest Estates, and the unnatural stillness of the air. It was the memory of a forecast she'd obsessively checked that morning, the one the local news anchors had breezed past with a chuckle. A bit of a bump on the pass, folks, but we'll be right as rain by morning. Eleanor knew better. She had lived in the fierce embrace of the Rocky Mountains for 72 years. She'd read the almanac, tracked the barometric pressure with an old analog gauge her husband had left her, and she felt the deep bone ache that preceded a true dump. The bump was the Sawtooth Whiteout Pass, the serpentine high-altitude ribbon of asphalt that was the only road connecting Pinecrest Estates to the valley below and, crucially, to civilization. It was a beautiful drive in autumn, a deadly shoot in a storm. She set her mug down with a decisive click. The HOA meeting was at 7. They were voting on the new slate of officers and discussing, of all things, the proposed budget for decorative pathway lighting. They needed to be warned. The Pinecrest Estates Community Center was a monument to benign tyranny, all exposed beams and river stone, smelling of lemon polish and quiet coercion. Eleanor took her usual seat in the second row, her back straight, her copy of the agenda neatly folded. She listened as President Brad Harrington, a man whose smile was as polished as the hood of his black Lexus SUV, ran through the minutes. They discussed the lighting, a heated debate about lumens and aesthetic warmth. They approved fines for the Miller family, whose trash cans had been visible from the street for a full 20 minutes past collection time. Finally, Brad opened the floor for new business. Eleanor's hand was already in the air. Eleanor? Something to add about the lighting? Brad asked, his tone kindly condescending. The pass, she said, her voice clear and carrying in the hushed room. The Sawtooth Pass. There's a major storm coming. Not a bump. They're underestimating it. We need to advise residents to stay put after midnight tonight. No one should attempt the pass tomorrow if this keeps up. We should consider it preemptively closed. A ripple of polite amusement went through the room. Brad's smile widened. Now, Eleanor, we appreciate your mountain wisdom. But let's not get carried away. The county hasn't issued any advisories. The plows are excellent. We're not some isolated outpost. By tomorrow afternoon we will be, she insisted, feeling her cheeks grow warm. That road has 18 switchbacks above the tree line. The wind funnels through there like a freight train. When it whiteouts, you can't see the hood of your own car. There are no guardrails for 3 miles. People will get stuck or worse. From the back, Chad something or other, who owned a tech startup and a flashy Tesla, chimed in. With all due respect, Mrs. Vance, my Model Y has the latest traction control. It's practically a snowcat. A little powder isn't going to stop progress. There were chuckles. Eleanor gripped the edge of her seat. This isn't about your car's features, Chad. It's about physics. It's about visibility dropping to 0. It's about someone sliding into your snowcat and pushing you both over the edge. Brad held up a placating hand. Okay. We hear your concern. It's noted. But we can't just declare the pass closed. That's the county's job. I'm sure the crews will have it under control. Let's move on to the vote for treasurer. Eleanor sat through the rest of the meeting, a cold knot of dread tightening in her stomach. Her warning had been entered into the record as a resident's concern regarding potential weather. It had been smiled at, patted on the head, and dismissed. As she pulled on her coat, Brad approached her, his voice low and paternal. Eleanor, really don't worry. We've got this. You should enjoy the snow. Build a snowman. She looked him dead in the eye. When the first call comes in, Brad, remember this conversation. You'll be building snowmen beside wrecked cars. The snow did not stop. It thickened, the flakes transforming from delicate crystals to heavy, wet feathers that piled with relentless speed. By midnight, 8 inches blanketed Pinecrest Estates. The wind woke up, howling down from the peaks with a voice of pure fury. Eleanor lay awake, listening to it shriek around the eaves, watching the streetlights become mere smudges of orange in a raging white void. Her ancient weather radio, crackling with static, finally issued the alert she'd been waiting for: blizzard warning for the high country. Sawtooth Pass closed to all traffic. Travel is life-threatening. It was too late for a warning. The time for prevention had passed. The first call to 911 came at 6:17 a.m. It was Chad, the Tesla owner. His voice was high-pitched, frayed with panic, breaking up through the storm's interference. Somewhere on the pass, I think near the summit, completely white, I can't see anything. I'm in a ditch, I think. The car's beeping at me, I don't. The line went dead. The dispatcher's alert triggered a cascade of failures. The county plow, a massive beast of a machine, had attempted to make a run up the lower slopes at 4 a.m. and was now itself stranded, sideways, blocking one of the few wide turnouts. The wind was so fierce it was scouring the road bare in patches and depositing 10-foot drifts across it just yards away. This was not a snowstorm, it was a geological event. By 8 a.m., 3 more vehicles had been reported missing by frantic families. A young mother, Gina Arden, trying to get her toddler to a doctor's appointment she'd foolishly refused to cancel. An older couple, the Wallaces, who decided to beat the storm and head to their winter condo. A delivery van driver, Marcos, who'd been given the route last minute and was unfamiliar with the mountain's tricks. Pinecrest Estates was now an island cut off from the world. The power flickered, then died for good at 8:45 a.m., plunging the picture-perfect homes into a howling, gray silence. Brad Harrington stood at his own window watching the maelstrom, the first icy trickle of doubt seeping into his gut. He tried to call the county supervisor, a golf buddy, but the lines were down. Cell service was a memory. At the search and rescue headquarters in the valley, the mood was grim. The team, a mix of gritty volunteers and hardened professionals, was kidding up. The leader, a woman named Anya Sharma with eyes the color of weathered granite, studied the topographic map of the pass. SR1 to all units, she said into her radio, her voice calm but edged with steel. We have multiple vehicles and potential injuries. This is a full whiteout, winds gusting to 70. No air support. This is a ground game. We go in on snowmobiles and snowcats. Proceed to the last known coordinates of the first caller. It's a needle in a haystack. A frozen, angry haystack. Back in Pinecrest, Eleanor was not idle. She had a generator, ancient but reliable, and it coughed to life, powering her furnace, her radio, and a single lamp. She brewed a fresh pot of strong coffee, not for herself but for what she knew was coming. She pulled out her late husband's heavy wool socks, his old snowshoes, and a stack of wool blankets. Then she walked to her front door, unlocked it, and left it slightly ajar. A beacon in the storm. It was young Ryan, Brad's teenage son, who came first. He was on the community's emergency response team, a title bestowed for moving lawn chairs at the summer barbecue. He was scared. My dad, he's trying to act like it's fine, but I heard him on the satellite phone. They can't get to us. The pass it's a mess. People are stuck out there. Eleanor handed him a mug. Sit. Drink. We'll need warm bodies and clear heads soon enough. By mid-morning, a somber group had gathered in Eleanor's living room. Ryan, a nurse named Lisa who lived 2 doors down, a retired contractor named Hal. Brad arrived last, his bluster gone, replaced by a pale, shell-shocked anxiety. The reality of his dismissal now hung in the air, unspoken but palpable. The rescue teams are assembling, Eleanor said, tuning the radio to the SAR frequency. They listened, the crackling voices painting a terrifying picture in the dark room. SR3, we have visual on the county plow. It's completely blocked. No sign of the operator, he may have evacuated to a shelter cabin. Proceeding up switchback 3, visibility less than 10 feet. SR1, we have a signal ping from a cell phone near the summit ridge. Wait. Attempting to approach. Anya Sharma's voice cut through sharp. All teams be advised. We have reports of multiple vehicles off the road. I repeat, multiple vehicles. This is a mass casualty scenario in the making. Deploy probes carefully. The drifts are unstable. A mass casualty scenario. The words sucked the air from the room. Brad put his head in his hands. Out on the pass, Hell had made a local appearance. Anya, riding the lead snowmobile behind a snowcat, could see nothing but a wall of white. The headlamp beam reflected back into her goggles, a blinding tunnel. They were navigating by GPS and instinct. The wind was a physical force trying to peel them off the mountain. They found the Tesla first. Not in a ditch, but perched precariously on a wind-scoured rock outcrop, its nose hanging over a void that the snow had disguised. Chad was inside, curled in a fetal position, hypothermia setting in. He had panicked, overridden the car's warnings and driven straight off the road in zero visibility. It took them an hour, an eternity in the screaming cold, to secure the vehicle with winches and extract him, his high-tech chariot now a frozen tomb on the cliff edge. Further up, they found the Wallace's sedan. It had been hit from behind, likely by another vehicle now lost further down the slope, and shoved into a stand of thick pines. The front end was crushed. Mrs. Wallace was conscious but in shock, her husband unconscious with a head injury. Marcos, the delivery driver, had witnessed the crash, stopped to help, and his van had then become stuck trying to turn around. He was with them, using his uniform jackets to try and stem the bleeding, a hero in a brown short-sleeve shirt, his lips blue with cold. The young mother, Gina, was the hardest to find. Her SUV had slid gently off the road into a deep, soft drift, burying it up to the windows. She'd conserved fuel, run the engine in short bursts to keep her and her 3-year-old daughter Lily from freezing. But the exhaust pipe had clogged with snow. When Anya's team finally dug to the tailpipe, their hearts sank. Carbon monoxide. They broke the window with desperate haste. Inside, Gina was barely conscious, slumped over the wheel. But she had put Lily in the far back, wrapped in every piece of clothing from their suitcase, and had cracked a window there. The little girl was cold, crying but alive. Gina's last act of clear thinking had saved her child. One by one the stranded were located, triaged, and loaded into the tracked snowcats for the perilous journey down. The rescue teams were pushed to their absolute limits, fighting frostbite, exhaustion, and the ever-present risk of avalanche. Every saved life felt like a miracle wrested from the mountain's furious grip. In Eleanor's living room, the radio chatter was their only window onto the drama. They heard the terse, relieved calls, patient extracted, stable en route to base. They heard the grim ones, vehicle located, no survivors. Each one was a punch to the gut. Lisa, the nurse, organized a first aid station, expecting the rescue to be brought to the community center. Hal and Ryan, using Hal's heavy-duty pickup with chains, began clearing the entrance to the neighborhood, creating a path for the eventual arrival of emergency vehicles. Brad was a ghost, utterly useless, paralyzed by guilt. He stared at the radio as if it were an oracle pronouncing his judgment. When the news came that the Wallaces had been found, injured but alive, and that it was Marcos who'd stayed with them, Brad finally broke. I told him at the meeting last month that his van was an eyesore. He whispered, his voice ragged. I threatened a fine if he didn't stop making deliveries here. He was just trying to work. And he was out there because of it. He could have died. Eleanor didn't offer comfort. She simply said, listen. And remember. It took until nightfall, the storm finally beginning to abate, for the full scope to become clear. 7 vehicles. 14 people. 3 fatalities. A number that, the SAR commander would later state, would have been double if not for the sheer luck of some of the drift placements and the heroism of people like Marcos. The first snowcat, caked in ice and snow, rumbled into Pinecrest Estates just after 8 p.m. It went to the community center where Lisa and others waited. The rescued, wrapped in foil blankets, were a silent, traumatized procession. The hollow-eyed Tesla owner, the weeping young mother clutching her child, the stoic delivery driver with his arm in a sling. Anya Sharma, her face etched with exhaustion, followed the last transport in. She needed to brief the community what was left of it. She found them not at the pristine community center, but gathered in Eleanor Vance's warm, cluttered living room. The HOA board was there, shell-shocked. Residents hovered, bearing pots of soup and blankets. Anya took off her helmet. The pass is closed. Will be for days. We're setting up an emergency shelter here. We have medics coming in by helicopter tomorrow, weather permitting. Her gaze swept the room, landing on Brad, who seemed to shrink under its weight. We recovered the last vehicle an hour ago. A blue minivan. Went over the edge on switchback 9. No survivors. A collective gasp. Someone sobbed. Who? Brad started, his voice a croak. The Miller family, Anya said, her tone flat, devoid of any accusation that wasn't already present in the facts. License plate matched your community registry. They were trying to get out this morning. The Millers. The ones with the trash cans. The ones Brad had so proudly fined. The room seemed to spin. He had fined them for an eyesore, and they had fled the petty tyranny of his kingdom, straight into the abyss. Eleanor closed her eyes. No warning could have stopped everyone. But a firm, community-wide alert, a declaration of the pass's danger from the HOA itself, might have given the Millers pause. Might have made Gina cancel the doctor's visit. Might have stopped Chad from trusting his Tesla software over the mountain's wrath. In the days that followed, Pinecrest Estates was transformed. The decorative pathway lights remained dark, their wires buried under feet of snow. Instead, the community was lit by the harsh, honest floodlights of the National Guard helicopters and the glow of shared purpose. The strict hierarchies of the HOA dissolved. The nurse, Lisa, ran the triage center. Hal and a crew of others used their equipment to clear paths for resupply. Ryan organized the younger residents to check on every elderly person in the development. Eleanor's house became the command post, not by decree but by default. It was where the coffee was always hot, where the radio scanned the emergency bands, where people came for news and a moment of quiet solidarity. The pretense of control had been stripped away, revealing the fragile human truth beneath. Brad Harrington resigned as HOA president on the 3rd day. He did it quietly, leaving a note at the community center. He and his family left in the first convoy when the pass was partially cleared a week later. They did not say goodbye. The investigation, the news reports, the lawsuits, they would all come later. They would dissect the county's response time, the accuracy of the forecasts, the adequacy of the plowing. But within Pinecrest, the heart of the failure was understood. It was the choice to prioritize aesthetics over resilience, rules over wisdom, and the arrogant assumption that their wealth and technology could insulate them from the ancient, indifferent power of the mountain. One evening, a month after the storm, with the pass finally clear and the scars on the mountainside still raw and visible, the community gathered again. Not for an HOA meeting but for a memorial. They stood in the cold, clean air, looking at 3 new stones in the local cemetery, and a 4th for the Millers, whose bodies had been recovered far below. Anya Sharma, back for the ceremony, found Eleanor standing apart, looking up at the Sawtooth Pass, now a benign sun-dappled stripe in the distance. You tried to warn them, Anya said, coming to stand beside her. A warning only works if someone is willing to hear it, Eleanor replied, her breath making a small cloud in the air. We build our little kingdoms and think we've tamed the wilderness. We write rules about trash cans and forget to write plans for survival. They'll listen now, Anya said, nodding toward the group. She saw Lisa, now heading a new emergency preparedness committee. Hal, overseeing a fund to equip the community with proper generators and satellite phones. Ryan, talking earnestly about creating a phone tree. For a while, Eleanor said, her voice softened by a weary wisdom. But memory fades. New people will move in. They'll see the beautiful views and the clean streets. They won't see the ghosts on the pass. The HOA will be taken over by someone new, someone who thinks the biggest problem is the color of a mailbox. She turned to Anya, a faint, sad smile on her lips. The mountain always wins in the end, my dear. It's just a matter of time. The best we can do is not hand it the victory on a silver platter wrapped in our own foolishness. Below them, the town was healing, buzzing with the urgent work of repair and the fragile hope of lessons learned. But high above, the Sawtooth Pass waited, silent and white, holding the secrets of the cars they had pulled from the snow, and the stories of those who would never drive down it again. It was a permanent warning, etched not in the meeting minutes, but in the very rock and ice, a reminder that some forces do not respond to fines or votes, only to respect and to the humble, unheeded voice of experience whispering into the gathering storm.